Who's that?
Oh, hello.
Hello. What are you doing with so many suits? I don't meet a lot of people in UX that
My
have,
sister got married, and I had to get a suit for that. And then this is my wedding, which I don't fit in anymore. This is way too small. I don't want to talk about that. Let's not talk about that.
I highly recommend drugs for the whole family. Better living through chemistry.
Robitussin. Just a little whiskey on the lips.
It worked for us as kids. I'm just saying, we're fine.
You know, relatively speaking. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. Not just 5 stars, I'm talking about a couple sentences too. That'll help me out so much. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, and Radu for their support. And if you want to join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, and Radu, help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet perks for your support. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. So everybody out there has heard me say a million times, stop applying, start connecting. And I give this advice all the time. And a couple of weeks back, Maigen Thomas posted something which is, to me, like, I don't know, just, it was one of those things I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm not like influencing people and telling them to do this, but what not to do when networking. And so I am so excited to have Maigen come on today and talk about this. Maigen, are you excited as I am?
I am super pumped.
Hell yeah. We're going to talk about how not to network on LinkedIn, and then we'll also tell you how to also do it right. But I'm really excited to have Maigen on the show today. Maigen Thomas is a UX designer with an impressive 9-year track record in UX design with a solid foundation in front-end development. So she's a career shifter coming from front-end development, which is awesome to see. She's passionate about helping early career UX designers to be successful. And for the last 2.5 years, she's been teaching the UX bootcamp at UC Berkeley. Her dedication to the craft inspired Maigen to create the UX Social Club, which is a small community of designers who share her values and commitment to collaboration and excellence. And in this community, which she affectionately calls capital G, capital P, good people, Maigen encourages and inspires her colleagues to help each other level up in their careers.
Yes.
She's going to help y'all do that today as well. Maigen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I actually want to add something to that intro. I love that I've got the experience in front-end development, but like I wanted to back it up a tiny bit. The reason I'm so compassionate about early career designers and career changers is I was a flight attendant before I went to a full stack development boot camp.
I saw that on LinkedIn.
So
yes.
like not only have I shifted from development to design, but like I went from not programming anything more complicated than the oven on the plane. And let's be real, when I say programming, I put 20 minutes on, it cooks the food, and then it shows up. So
you press a couple buttons.
I've got some real experience with that career change and the emotional stress that comes with it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I saw that on LinkedIn actually. And that is something I wanted to ask you about because I feel like, for me at least, I don't know, I would just imagine, I'm guessing that interacting with so many people every single day probably taught you quite a bit about how to work with other people. And I think probably made you a better communicator, made you a better probably listener as well, like helping to get people to, do things you wanted to do in a nice way without having to like beat them over the head with
it helped me manage, 45-year-old children essentially when they're acting out and like, oh, I can't get this level on Candy Crush. Hi, could we focus on what needs to be done? Thank you.
Can you put that away?
Thanks.
Oh, that's so funny. I love that. Yeah, that's an amazing thing. And you're right. I'm glad you pointed that out because that's a double career shift right there. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. So Maigen, you've got a lot of stuff and you've done a little bit. I usually like to ask people, how they got into UX design, and you got a really interesting backstory. Can you,
that's a good segue.
With the double career, can you give us like a quick rundown? How did you end up going from flight attendant to front-end development and ultimately realizing, this isn't for me and shifting again?
Yeah, great question. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because I feel like if I can do it, you can do it. I was 31. I had been a flight attendant for 6 years, and I'll back up a tiny bit further. And this is just a fun little anecdote. I got kicked out of Canada because it turns out you can't just like drive up there and live. You actually have to pay taxes and fill out paperwork. And when they kicked me out of Canada,
But NAFTA.
Right. I know. They're just America's hat. Can I just drive? No, they were very, very kind when they turned me around at the border, but they still, in fact, were like, ooh, no, you have to leave. And that's how I became a flight attendant was I needed a job and Delta was hiring. And lucky for them. But 6 years into it, about 5.5 years, really, I had torn my bicep tendon. And I'm not going to lie, the senior mamas, the old ladies that were still mad because Northwest, they had lost seniority when Northwest and Delta merged. Like it was drama. They were mean to me when I transferred to a very, very old school base. And I realized, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of being handed dirty diapers and apple cores that have been chewed on by strangers. So I realized, what do I want to do? And I don't have a 4-year degree. I tried college about 4 times. It didn't take. I didn't learn until 31 years old that I have ADHD. I have auditory processing disorder. So like school was not my jam. So when I kind of faced this like career catharsis of what do I want to do? I am 31 years old without without a formal education, without a career, and without a direction. So like I went through a momentary like quarter life crisis, and then my partner at the time suggested I look at coding, and I gave it a shot. I honestly assumed that I was not smart enough to do it. I just thought, well, you got to be good at numbers and stuff like that. I went to Codecademy. This is back in 2013. Went to Codecademy and learned how to do HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript. And it blew my mind how exciting it was to be able to manipulate these things on the screen with what appeared to be just like science fiction. Let's be real. Like coding magic, is science. Yeah. It's magic, but it's magic with lots of weird looking characters. I felt like a wizard with a bag of tricks when I could hover and like make the circle turn into a square. Oh my God, mind blown. And I went to Epicodus boot camp. It's a full stack boot camp here in Portland, Oregon. I was their 3rd cohort ever. It was amazing. It was a challenge. It was so, so, so hard. And I landed this is so, it's hard to sound compassionate when I'm like, I landed the first job that I interviewed for. I think I just presented well. Like I was a flight attendant. I knew how to speak to people, make eye contact. I was wearing a dress. There were people who smelled like they'd slept on the couch for a week in my cohort. So it wasn't really that difficult to land the interview. The interview was a challenge, but I was going to be a front-end developer, and I landed the job, and it was a startup. So my lead designer or my lead developer, front-end developer, was also a UX designer that just had gotten roped in because he came with the CTO. And I learned UX on the job. So it's very interesting to me to see the boot camps and what they're like cramming into 6 months, because I essentially had 3 years to learn from like he's a true mentor to me. He is the head of shopping UX at Amazon. So kind of knows a little bit about what he's doing.
Knows what he's doing, I would assume.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Shout out to Seth Yont. Amazing. But I learned on the job. And once I figured out, not only can I make these pixels, I can make these pretty boxes on the screen, I can get people to click on them. I can help them find their way to them. I can help convince them that they should take the next step with UX writing. If I thought I was a wizard with a bag of tricks, I was phenomenal cosmic power when I learned UX. So that's how I kind of like transitioned from illegal nanny in Canada to flight attendant to front-end dev to UX designer. And so now I've been doing it for 9 years, which feels bizarre. I think I'm coming up on 10 years, which is, it's bizarre, but I love it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that is quite, you could write a memoir. I would love to read that book.
I got stories I don't want associated with my name. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't need to know the naughty stuff.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. So the whole idea of this episode today came about this post that you had last week. Somebody reached out to you and wanted some help. So a little bit of background, you mentioned in the bio that you are a professor at UC Berkeley.
Ooh, professor is very, no, I'm
professor.
an instructor.
I was going to say, after I said that, I was like, is that instructor? That's probably like other people like, you're not.
Yeah, totally. Someone has, in fact, they're like, I know someone on staff and you're not there. I'm like, I'm at UC Berkeley Extension. It's different, but like, fine, sure, go stalk me.
Yeah. It's funny because side tangent here, but I used to be a front-end developer as well. And back in the day, I actually did that before I started at G now. I did like UX, then went back and anyway, finally decided I didn't want to do it. I have a whole story. This is an episode.
Oh my gosh, we need to catch up. I need to know this.
We definitely should. Yeah, but where was I going with this?
So sorry.
Oh, I remember the engineer. So I would call myself front end developer, and then when I started at GE, they're all like, "No, we're software engineers." And I had some friends who were like mechanical engineers, and like those guys aren't engineers.
That word,
Anyway,
yeah, people got
so
real
it's funny.
squiffy
Anyway,
about
engineer,
that.
instructor,
But you were a UI engineer at that point.
I kind of was because I did all of it. I was kind of front end developer, and then UX, and I did all.
Is that what people call like a full stack designer now? Like I don't know what these.
I have to be honest.
Are.
I have no idea.
Okay, good. All right. Well,
At the time, I was front end developer / UX designer. So
same. That was my first role. I was like, this is great. And it gives us a lot, like just not to side tangent too much, but I don't think UX designers need to learn how to code, but like it's real nice if you know.
Yeah. You know what I say? This is what I say. I say you don't necessarily have to know how to type the code.
Right.
But you need to understand how to think like an engineer.
Yes.
Like understand the thought process. How does this work? How does this thing, what happens when you do this thing? What's connected in the background? And, you don't need to make sure you know how to write a function in the most efficient way possible, but at least understand how it works.
Right.
So anyway, all right. So I got a total side tangent there. Engineer, professor, that's what I was going with this. Instructor at UC Berkeley. And you get a lot of these students. And so, you post a lot on LinkedIn and I would consider you a thought leader, quote unquote.
Okay.
And so a lot of people reach out to you is the point.
Yeah.
And somebody reached out last week. Tell us about this conversation and what went wrong.
Oh, so I almost feel terrible. I don't feel terrible because it is a learning moment and I like sharing learning moments. I feel terrible that this person might have felt like a guinea pig, but it kind of came after. So my current cohort at UC Berkeley is in week 21 or week 22 of 24. So like we've gone from the what's user-centered design all the way to, all right, we're working on a final project and it's going really well. So throughout that process, we've talked about how you're going to leverage this experience in a boot camp into getting a job. And it's not necessarily what you know, because the boot camps are all essentially teaching the same thing. Let's be very honest. Like no one's teaching new stuff. Like the whole joke about 10,000 monkeys could eventually reproduce the works of William Shakespeare. I believe this is true. I think it's up to the individual person to put their own understanding, their own spin, if you will, on it, but also to build a network that allows them exposure to things they would never get exposed to. So networking is super key. And I try to demonstrate for my students an effective way to continue networking. So I'm constantly sharing posts and saying, what do you think about this? If you have an interesting thought, then share that thought. So this person obviously went to a boot camp. I did end up looking through their profile to see what boot camp they went to. I'm not going to name them or the boot camp, obviously, but it was very obvious to me that it was an assignment. So the original message came through and it was just kind of generic. And I occasionally lose patience. Occasionally. I try to have a ton of empathy and patience because, again, I've experienced where these folks are coming from with career change, and it's nerve-wracking. It is a lot of times really outside people's normal realm of comfort. So I have a lot of compassion, but I also do expect people to bring a little bit of critical thought. That is pretty much the challenge I ran into reading that message was, this is not critically thoughtful. It feels copy and pasted. And if you're willing to waste my time, how many people's time are you willing to waste? And how does that position you to get a job that you desire? So this person, bless their heart. You're also from the South-ish area. So like, bless your heart sometimes doesn't mean, aw, baby. Yeah. It sometimes means like, stop and think at best. Yep. So I did write back. I did in fact say, hey, what exactly are you looking for out of this conversation? Because a generic like 15 to 20 minutes is really that. We started with 15 minutes of just chatting. So like 15 to 20 minutes is nothing. And my time is pretty valuable. It's taken a long time for me to realize that my time is valuable. So I do try to spend it well, but I will meet with just about anyone. And yet I want to ask, like, what are the questions you want to ask? Let me prepare in advance. Let me see if I have any links that can help you. And their response with their 10 questions. First of all, 10 questions is a lot to just start out with like, okay, hello, stranger. Can you answer these things for me? And then some of the questions were they were not interesting. They didn't tell me that this person had given any thought to creating the questions, just that they were told they should ask some questions. And especially the part about like, should I work for a startup or a big company? Our favorite answer in UX is it depends. And that's going to depend on you, not what I tell you.
Of course.
And then there was some other pretty generic questions about like quality over quantity. Don't ask me if I want quality over quantity. I'd rather have one really awesome thing than 70 really crappy things. Like, wouldn't you? Right. I mean, unless it's chocolate, I'll take some really mediocre chocolate in quantity. That's fine.
So you've got a whole episode on your YouTube channel about this specifically. So we don't need to dive into all the questions. And I'm going to link to them in the show notes. Nice. And I want everybody, I really do believe that this is like a real, because you go through each question bit by bit and sort of pick it apart. We don't have to do that
and
today.
I also answer with some folks who left comments in the comments of that post.
Oh, right. Yes, you did. Yes. Yeah. The senior versus you're like,
I responded to some of them because I'm like, hey, this is the perspective. This is what you're putting out into LinkedIn, which is your public persona. And these are the things that you're saying to designers that you are hoping to be like someday. And leaving some responses to that. It was a really long riff. I feel like maybe 50 minutes was a little long. I did try to like cut it down, but it was meaty. But yeah, you got to remember what you're putting out there. So that was it was an interesting post.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you mentioned that, and I've had a conversation with somebody the other day about this, and I think might end up having an episode about it in the near future, but it's, you've got these boot camp graduates that they don't necessarily know any better. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of boot camps just sort of telling people to do things, mm-hmm. and they mindlessly follow them, not because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an ignorance sort of thing, or I'm not really sure, but I feel often very bad for a lot of the boot camp graduates because their instructors will tell them to do a thing.
Yeah.
And they'll just go and do it, not thinking like the critical thought piece, I think, is really important, Like you mentioned in your episode, Debbie Levitt, she talks about it. Darren Hood, they talk about it all the time. And this is like really just like a huge thing. And unfortunately, part of the boot camp education is teaching you what to do, not how to think about the things that we're doing. They're not teaching any of the students to think critically.
Really not.
Which is like, I know we're not talking about boot camp education, but I'm willing to bet you probably take sort of a different approach with your students. But I don't know. I feel like that's part of it too. It's like the boot camp is telling them to do stuff, and the kids go. I say kids; they're not kids.
I know. They're kids to me until they graduate, and then we're like, we're all adults here. Totally.
Yeah. So anyway, what are your thoughts there? Is that like how do you? I don't know. Shift blame. We're not really blaming anybody, I guess. But what do you think about that?
I will take on some of this, mostly because I don't know if you looked at. I'm sure you looked at my profile. What I did. I took a 1.5 break from doing actual design work to write design curriculum for the boot camps. So I've got some both sides perspective. I've got a lot of friends who have written curriculum for other boot camps as well. I don't know if you've talked with Julia DeBari, but she has written curriculum for like 10 boot camps. And we have opinions. We have opinions now. And the opinion comes from trying to scale education in a way that's not personal and trying to appeal to as many people as possible. These are for-profit education systems. Nobody is doing this for free. So what they're trying to do is give as generic, I don't want to say generic, but yeah, generic education as possible, which means that we're not doing a lot of one-on-ones, and we're not even pairing people with mentors that they resonate with. It's kind of like, if you can find someone that you connect with, then you might get some mentorship on the networking front, or on like just the business understanding front. Like, what does it take to be in this job besides knowing how to conduct a, user interview kind of thing?
You said something a minute ago I want to touch on again. You and I talked for 15 to 20 minutes before just about really just bullshit. I don't even remember what we talked about. Pizza. We talked about my kids yelling and screaming. We talked about all kinds of crap. And so, the interesting thing is when we tell people to network, right? Mm-hmm. We say, you don't want to take up too much of their time, 20, 30 minutes. And really the sort of the problem is, and you touched on this, is 15 to 20 minutes is not really enough time to get to know the person, to give them the information that would help that person specifically. Because I could tell you everything I think in 15 to 20 minutes, but that doesn't mean it's going to be helpful for you. So my question is, I guess, like in this case, when we tell people to network, are we telling them the wrong thing to say 15 to 20 minutes? Because we don't want to take the veterans too much of their time. But at the same time, is it helpful for anybody to only spend 15 minutes? I'm curious what you think there when we talk about this and setting up the time. What are your thoughts?
It's not. I think the fact that we're telling people to reach out and set up a time immediately is crazy. That is asking for a lot of no's. And I do tell my students, I'm like, hey, you're entering a job, an industry and a job that is very competitive right now. So you're going to be lucky if you get your resume seen. You're going to be lucky if you get a response back from anyone. It's not because they don't like you. It's not because you're a jerk. It's because there's just so many people. And the trend is going to change. The pendulum will swing. I get it. But the networking thing, it's not enough just to like reach out and connect with someone anymore. Like the early days of LinkedIn, I don't know if anybody remembers those. Like I wasn't here in the early days, but I was here a decade ago and it was different. And now it's just like it's a wall of people. How do you stand out? Well, the first thing to do is not ask for something. I was asked a couple of years ago, and this was okay. I'm going to take a little side trip into like personal territory, but it's and I don't want to make your face go like, wait a second, what are we doing? Do we edit this? My partner asked me. I was trying to value whether or not to hire someone, and this sounds really bougie, but I was trying to weigh whether or not I could afford to hire someone to clean the house, and it seemed expensive, but I also, you don't want to go with like the absolute cheapest version. You want to go with someone who will hopefully treat it like their own home. And the value of that and what I was getting paid at the time did not really measure up. And the anxiety was there. But I was also, I think this was in the time when I was early in the boot camp, or I was really trying to grow my career. So I was working a ton and like things were falling by the wayside. And finally, they asked me, hey, what do you value your time per hour at? And I'm like, oh, well, I get paid this much per hour. And they're like, no, not what they value your time at. What do you value your time at? What would an hour allow you to do with your time? And essentially it came down to about $50 an hour. So that's how much I pay my house cleaner. And it is the best money I spend every 2 weeks for just 3 hours. Like it's not a lot. Honestly, it's keeping the basics done and it emotionally frees me up. So the reason I tie that back in is like my time's worth money to me, and it should be valued by the person who is asking me for my intellectual, my knowledge, the information I have that can help them. So one of the things that I don't recommend doing is leading with an ask of, let me have some of your time. That's already like, excuse you, I don't know you from a hole in the ground. Why should I give you some of my time? So leading with questions is great. But I think leading with contact and genuine curiosity is even better. So instead of reaching out to say, hi, can I have 15 to 20 to 30 minutes of your time? I would reach out and say, hey, I've already done some of this effort. I've looked at the work that you've put out in the world, or I've seen a YouTube video. I thought this was interesting. And I have a follow-up question, showing genuine curiosity in the other person
about that, right.
To say, I think you have value and I would like to learn from that value. Like that's a respectful way to approach people and to get them to want to give you some of their time.
And it also shows that they already did some work before they even contacted you.
Yeah.
Like I looked you up and I spent time going through your content that you've already taken a lot of time and effort to put together. I've seen your YouTube videos. They're very professional. A lot of time, I'm sure, editing, all the equipment you had to buy to do that, to make it sound good and look good. I mean, that's not cheap, right? So, that takes effort. Just even browsing, Google to figure out what camera to buy. I mean, that takes time and effort, right? It does. So, it shows that they valued that amount of effort to go and look up the stuff you've already done. And so, that already shows like I did some effort. Now I have another question that you haven't answered yet.
Right.
Can you help me? Yeah.
And it also makes the person on the other side, and this is not just me, but other folks I've talked to are like, wow, it shows me that you have a genuine interest in being here, not checking a box for your boot camp. Like reaching out for networking and asking super vague, generic questions that you could literally Google. Don't do that. That's not showing me that you've given thought to what you want to get out of this network, other than like, let me have a connection so that my number ticks up, or so that hopefully I can have access to your network. That's a very disingenuous, transactional kind of way to do it.
So I'm curious, what's your thought on utilizing some of the other maybe less utilized functions of LinkedIn? Like specifically, the comments section?
Oh, the comments are the first place I would start. If they're,
Yeah.
I just laugh because there's not a whole lot of people who are, I'm super like impressed. I don't want to say impressed. Lots of people impress me. I don't fangirl over a lot of people. So I don't have a lot of people where I'm like, ooh, let me go stalk you and find out if you want to give me some attention, shine your light on me. But there's a few people that I would want to connect with. And this would be, let me actually take this back. Not just, hey, I'm entering this industry. Let me get to know some people, some thought leaders, some people who are driving the industry. But if I was looking for a job and I was excited about just like one company, and I don't even have a company I can name off the top of my head, I'd be like, ooh, they're my jam. And I really want to make a good impression. So like reaching out to people who are at my level there would be like my first thing, but it wouldn't just be like, let me slide into your DMs. It's, hey, ooh, let me follow you first. Let me see if you have content that's interesting. Because one of the things that we're doing this networking for is to find out, are you the kind of person that I want to be, as I joke, on the jump seat next to? Because in the event of an emergency, we're going to work together to evacuate this plane. And that there are no real emergencies in UX, like I hope. No emergencies that I have found over the last 9 years. But to know that you want to engage in a personal level with someone, like you spend how many hours a year? Over 2,000 hours. And that's just your base 40 hours. Was it 2,080 hours a year? And that's your base 40. And let's be real.
I'm not good at math. That's why I'm a designer. I have no idea.
Right. I know. And like, let's be real. I'm thinking about work well after that. So I spend lots of time with these humans. I want to know, are you a good person? Are you interesting? Are you funny? Are you kind? Are you compassionate? I want to follow you first and find out some more information. And then I might engage on your posts and say, oh, that's really interesting. What do you think about this? Or, ooh, thanks for posting this. That was really helpful. And then share it to my network. Those are really easy ways to get on somebody's radar while also doing your own little stealth research on who are you?
Absolutely. You made a good point there too, because just sending someone a DM, like without looking up who they are, let's say they do give you time. And then that 30 minutes is a total waste to you because you're like, I don't like this person at all. I don't believe anything they said. They're full of crap.
Your time's valuable too. So like, do you want to give them 20 minutes? Ugh.
Yeah.
You ever been on a call? You want to get off soon? You're just like, so I'll give you 40 minutes of your time back. No.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I just forgot I have a meeting I got to run to. I'm late. So yeah, I think like that's something to think about too. It's like from the side of the person trying to do the networking, you have to know who you're actually getting advice from. You don't want to just get advice from anybody, right? This is another thing like, Darren Hood, I know mentions all the time, vet your sources, find out who you're actually learning from, because if you learn from the wrong asshole, you're going to go and just think, oh, this is all true,
I was actually just talking the other day, and we're going to do a little side tangent here again. I'm watching Below Deck Sailing Yacht, which is just the best TV. Oh gosh, it's on Bravo. Is this
like a reality show?
Yeah, it's reality. It's absolute trash. But like, it's the best junk food for your brain ever, except for like Ted Lasso. That's funny and charming and wholesome. This is just reality TV show of people who work on a super yacht. It's so far removed from the world, but it's because it's such a small little ecosystem that they have a really specific hierarchy. They've got your chief stewardess, chief stew, second stew, and third stew, and whatever. And you don't know how to be a good second stew if you haven't had a good chief stew teaching you. You don't know how to be a good manager or a good people person until someone has taught you or you've watched and learned from them. So if you're learning from the wrong person, you're going to take those bad habits and build your career on bad habits. And that is the last thing I want junior designers or early career designers to do.
I like to use the analogy of a gymnast learning to do a backflip, right? Like, you could go online, you could read a book, you could watch a YouTube video, how to do a backflip, and then you could go in your backyard and try to do a backflip all by yourself. And you could break your neck. You might do a backflip, but you also
might fail.
Could break your neck, or you could find the right gym. You could go and shop around for the right gym, find a gym. They have the safety equipment. They could hands-on, no, you're back, you got to do this, or flip, slowly show you and teach you how to do a backflip. So you have to go find the right gym. You can't just like go and first gym you pull up to, and you might break your neck there too.
Right.
So
Like,
it's all about finding the right gym to learn how to do it.
Not even the right gym, but like the right coach, the person that you vibe with.
It could be the right coach. Yeah,
I
the wrong gym.
genuinely have your health and safety at like the top of my priority list. It matters. So why, to follow that analogy, why would you just pick the next gym? This matters. So your networking matters too. May not be your body that could be damaged, but like your career could be impacted, and the way it could grow are impacted by how you start this outreach, how you start this network.
So the thing that I'm thinking about, right, is all the things that you're saying, right? This takes time. This is not something you can just do overnight. And the thing that I think back to is the fact that it's an assignment. The way that it's assigned is you're what's the right word? You're incentivizing the wrong
metric.
Actions,
you're
right?
tracking the wrong metric.
Right, the wrong metric. Right, exactly. So in this case, you're saying by Friday, you should message 20 people.
Oh, God.
That is not going, the outcome is completely lost there. The outcome isn't messaging the people. The outcome is the connection.
Building the network.
Exactly. And so you're incentivizing the wrong behavior, whereas, find a meaningful connection by the end of the quarter.
Yes.
With one person.
Yes.
Or build a meaningful connection by the end of the year with 2 people, whatever it is. Like, that to me would be the type of assignment versus just go message people.
Right.
Here's a script, like a cold calling script, like you're a salesman. And the funny thing with that is like cold called salesmen, they message or email or phone hundreds of people a day,
and they
might
get
2%,
3%,
10%,
exactly.
whatever it is. So but you're not building meaningful relationships. You're just hitting your numbers. And so I just want to point that out. Like that's something is just transactional, exactly like you said. Just doing it for the sake of doing it is the complete wrong.
You've lost the value in it. So like when you make it the assignment and that's the metric you check, you're like, oh, okay, cool, you've done that, but what's the true value of it? So I don't know how to change that assignment. Like I know it's recommended. I know it's also people who are moving through this boot camp experience, whether it's the 3-month or the 6-month or however many weeks there are. There's only so much information that you can cram into a human brain at one time. And I get that it has to be assigned because otherwise if you say, oh, you should also means, if you have time.
And that's the other thing to keep in mind too. Like a lot of times people at boot camps, they have full-time jobs. They are also doing this on nights and weekends, and so you're right. I mean, there's certainly a bit of empathy that you have to have for the students as well. I think it's I don't know. I don't have an answer. Maybe you do. But let me ask you this: how do you do it with your students, or do you do this with your students? And if you do, how do you do it?
I do. And this is where I think the boot camp choice matters, but also your boot camp instructor matters. So Debbie Levitt, like we talked earlier, or like we mentioned earlier, she has an entire video. I swear it might be video 110, but like, don't quote me.
You gotta memorize
where she talks about how to critically think about the boot camp that you're looking into. And it is important that you know who your instructor is going to be. First of all, this is your introduction into how to do things right. And also, if you build a rapport, which hopefully you do over however long a period of time your boot camp is for, with this person, like this is your first exposure to another person's network. So I am pretty careful about, hey, I'm not going to introduce you to random awesome people that I know until I can trust that you're going to essentially represent me well as well. So we talk about these things. I encourage them. I've actually given them, I don't want to say assignments, but they're kind of assignments where I'm like, but like the assignment isn't go connect with 20 people. The assignment is go find one person's post and share it with the class and tell me your thoughts about it. Like give me what you would comment. And then let's talk about the comment and help them think through like, what's a valuable comment? Not like, hey, thanks for sharing, but like how, I see what you said here with point A, and then point B was really interesting. I have this thought, it's point Z. How does that relate in your opinion? Like that's a valuable question that starts a conversation and that shows you have a thought process. You've got critical thinking, but also you can extrapolate from topics. So that's the kind of meaningful connection that I encourage them to do outreach for. And I would encourage this starting from week 1. People get to like halfway through the boot camp and they start to go, oh, okay, I feel like I'm starting to know what I'm talking about. No. Your LinkedIn should have been started on day 1 and you should have been out there attempting to learn and connect with folks. But again, no one's taught how to network. So it's not like we teach it in
Absolutely.
school. So even as an adult learner coming into a boot camp, I don't expect you to know this. So it's things that I work in small ways that I feel have been standardized testing sort of in some of these boot camps that make it, sure, it's an assignment, but you can personalize.
Part of the problem, I think, this is my assumption, my hypothesis, that LinkedIn, there's so many people. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people you could follow. And it gets to be somewhat overwhelming, right? You end up with like sort of the paralysis of choice. And what I tell people a lot, I'd love to get your thoughts here, is, find your niche, find the industry that you're passionate about, healthcare, enterprise, I don't know, commercial tools or chat tools or whatever it is you're really passionate about, health tech, fintech, food tech, whatever. And what I tell a lot of people, I've run across a lot of people who had a background in the service industry and they really wanted to get into food tech. So, you've already got sort of like something that you can then relate to a person who works in food tech. You're starting to build some common ground, something you could start a conversation with.
Yeah.
Versus just a random thing. So, if you find, what are you passionate about? Like for me, for instance, it's enterprise. I love enterprise.
Oh, so you love data tables.
I love dashboards and data tables.
Got it.
No, what I love about enterprise is not the visual piece of it, but it's helping people to do their job easier. Like I love enterprise. And so I'm really passionate about helping some poor schmuck who has no say in the tools they've been assigned to use, making their tools better so that they don't go home miserable every day. You're speaking my language,
Jeremy. That's exactly what I focus on too. Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
So I love that. And I will never apply to a Meta or a Google because I just have absolutely no interest in that shit.
Same.
So and if that's you've got some unique thing to bring to the table to start a conversation with somebody who works in enterprise. So don't go out and find someone at Google to talk to if you have no interest in working for a company like that.
Right. Now that's just a vanity metric. I'm just connecting with other humans to make my number count get higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got an ex-Googler, ex-Fitbit, ex-blah, blah, 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 blah. So, I think that's something to think about if you're having trouble deciding who to follow or who to reach out to. Hopefully follow first, like you mentioned. Do that and think about your why and think about what you want to get out
Start
of this.
with why. Exactly.
Start with your why. Where's my book?
There you go.
Find your why. Start with my why is in another room. Oh, it's right here. I got it right here.
Nice.
I love that book. So anyway, I assume you're referencing Simon Sinek.
Simon's
okay,
neck.
let's make it
Start with why.
I'm like, maybe there's something else you're talking about.
Totally.
So anyway, I don't know. I'm curious, like your thoughts. Sounds like you were nodding along. Nobody can see that out in podcast world. That's okay.
I didn't want to be like, in your ear.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yes, narrow down on anything. Like, let's be real. It doesn't have to be your passion. Sure. It can just be something that you have a little bit of knowledge about. It makes you feel a little bit more empowered to go, oh, I understood that reference. If we want to throw the Captain America in there, I understood that reference. It's important to know that you have something of value to add to the conversation. I think a lot of people coming out of boot camps feel like, I don't know anything. I'm a babe in the woods. I'm a little neophyte. And you're not. You have life experience that you have brought to this. It is hopefully part of why you got excited about UX, because you were unsatisfied in these other job choices or these other career roles that you've had. And you came to UX because you're like, oh, I like solving problems. I like people and I want them to have a better life. Find anything that you can lean into, that you can find common ground. I really hate using this term, but I don't know a better term. Or I mean, now I'm like interrupting myself with my own wokeness. But the concept of finding your tribe, which I know is very again, I don't know. Find your group. Find the people that you vibe
your
with.
Community.
Your community.
Yeah,
and then you can branch out from there, because it's like little overlap of these little, like, oh, you've got cake entrepreneurs, people who love to run their cake business, have a realm of knowledge, but they also have a realm of knowledge with like event planners. And event planners have a lot in common with travel planners. And like all of these things are connected, but you need to find one thing, not just like a spray and pray of the whole universe. Like, please, someone pay attention to me, connect with me. That's hard. And you're wearing yourself out doing that. So find something that you have at least a little bit of knowledge about and connect with some leaders in that space.
And you mentioned something too, it's worth pointing out is, you're wearing yourself out. You do this, same with like, and this is again why I say, stop applying and start connecting. You could send 100, 200 resumes a week. That takes a lot of effort. Spend less time making it more meaningful?
I mean, people who tell me that they have put 300 applications out this week, I'm like, cool, you're going to get about a 0% return on that.
Yeah.
It's not meaningful. And I also wonder, like, what does the application process look like? It's why you go to jobs on LinkedIn and you see that there are 14,000 applicants for like one entry level position. First of all, there's not enough entry level jobs, obviously, but it's like, are you throwing yourself into the ring meaningfully, or are you just like, please somebody? And that like touches on an entirely different topic that's not here, which is if you're putting out this many applications and getting 0 responses, like, what's your critical thought? What should you change? What's your experiment telling you? The scientific process applies.
So I want to talk about something too with regards to networking, and this is, again, not necessarily applying to people who are still in a boot camp, but talking about people who have finished the boot camp and are now looking for a job. I'm curious, specific techniques or advice that you might give to somebody to help them in their job hunt as it relates to LinkedIn. Or just in networking in general. Let's just ignore LinkedIn for a minute, but just networking in general as it relates to their job hunt.
And I love when you tell people to stop applying, start networking. Like, that is critical. The problem I think people struggle with, or the thing I think people struggle with in this instance, is knowing what that balance is and knowing what their expected timeline should be on the value, the return on that investment, essentially. I'm spending the time connecting with people. How soon should I expect them to return my message? How soon should I expect to build an informational interview with someone at a company I'm interested in working at? It's a very slow game. And this is why, like, from week 1, you should start building that network and finding people that you connect with, and really and truly looking to find a mentor. So all of these networking outreaches that I do, I am hoping to find someone to inspire me. So at 9 years, I have several mentors, and I think everyone should have them. So like, the entire point to me of networking is to eventually find that one person, or multiple people if possible, to help you navigate corporate worlds, to be your corporate sponsor, someone who is at a much higher level in the company that sees your potential and that can help you find projects and things to lean in on to eventually shine. And it starts with that first conversation. Those are not magical connections. Like, no one assigns you a mentor at your first job. No one.
Here's your mentor. Here's your laptop. Here's your mentor.
And, like, not only is this your mentor, but this is the person who is genuinely cares about you. If someone assigned me someone, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, we'll see if in the next 6 months you turn out to be a critical thinker.
Often we actually talk.
Yeah. So like, I think the goal, if we were to set the intention, start with why. Why are you trying to network? It's not to create a higher number of connections on LinkedIn. That ship has sailed in terms of like what impact that has on your network, unless you're a content creator, in which case, who knows? I'm not. So I'm just like, well, maybe that's way more valuable for some folks. But the intention for me is, I want to connect with people who I know can positively impact my world. Maybe that's because they put out good content, or because they're constantly sharing information and updates in their niche. Like, I follow Ethan Marcotte still, the guy who wrote responsive web design years and years ago. He kind of came up with the idea of responsive web design, media queries and images that resize and stuff. And no, that's not my world anymore. But I follow people like that in the hopes of connecting. And I got to interview Ethan Marcotte for when I was building the curriculum. And I really did straight up fangirl. I was like, we're going to cut this part out.
What is he up to nowadays?
Writing some really interesting stuff. I think yesterday I shared a post of his, but you should read Worldwide Work, talking about tech unionizing and how we are creating essentially multiple caste systems within the tech industry because of what work we outsource to different countries. Very, very, very thoughtful and intelligent. You should definitely talk to him. I think he would have a lot. I think he has a lot to do with the world of UX.
Right on. Yeah, that's awesome. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but yeah, that's a good advice. I love it. Yeah, one of the things that I often tell people too. This is like, I don't know how you feel about avocado toast.
I'm okay with it. It's not going to make me mortgage my house. I don't know what the obsession is. It's delicious, but I go in those cycles where I'm like, I'm obsessed with this food, and then I'll never eat it again. So I think I've been through my avocado toast.
Tell you what, I love a good sourdough, good thick cut, crispy sourdough toasted on the outside, but still soft on the inside, with a little bit of avocado, obviously, chili oil, little chili crisps.
Yes. Chili crisp
sesame oil
oil.
or
Yes.
something. Yeah. And
Yes.
then that's it.
When did
Maybe
this
a little
turn
like,
into a food podcast?
I don't know. Anyway, well, I got an analogy. So like, you really want avocado toast. You love avocado toast. You don't plant an avocado in the backyard and expect avocado that night for dinner if you want to make avocado toast. I guess you eat it for breakfast or a brunch. You don't plant it Sunday morning expecting it for brunch that day.
No.
So, if you want avocado toast, you have to like plant the avocado seed. It might take years to grow an avocado, but you don't wait until you're ready to eat the nice, ripe, green, just soft, wonderful, little chili oil. You don't wait until you're ready for that to plant the avocado toast, which is, obviously
perfect
a metaphor
analogy.
for networking.
Yeah.
You said day one, start day one. You don't wait until the assignment. You don't wait until you start applying for jobs. You think about that why. What are you into? You find those people, you start networking, and that whole 6 months, a year, you're building the relationship.
Yes.
And then once you're ready, that person already knows because you've had so many conversations, you've interacted with them so many times, and then they just think of you and you don't even have to ask. They just know.
Exactly.
Maigen, I've been talking to her. She'd be a great fit.
Totally.
Right?
I mean, this
And
is how
that's the
senior
key.
designers
That's the
get
key.
jobs, right? Like, when's the last time you didn't get a job? Or like, sorry, now I'm going to do a double negative. When's the last time you really had to like go suss out in your network who's hiring and whatever? Most of the time,
Right.
after a certain number of years, it's because, I know so-and-so, I worked with Maigen at this last thing. You should totally bring her in for this role. And that's because we built a network. So I know the boot camp is like the expedient version of getting into a new industry. So it's not just UX that's doing boot camps, obviously. But like it's 6 months. It's a very compressed timeline. So you've got to start ahead of time planting those avocado seeds in order to reap the benefits of beautiful avocado toast later. We're going to get weird on this analogy, aren't we?
So, you mentioned, it was funny, you mentioned like content creators. Because I'm doing like the podcast and stuff, I tend to follow a lot of like those content creators on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of UX people probably haven't heard of some of these folks, but there's a lot of like LinkedIn marketers that use LinkedIn as a way to sell their business.
Yeah.
Right. And which is totally fine. Versus something like Facebook, which is, you're not there to do work. You're usually on LinkedIn for a professional reason.
Be the consumer of the business, essentially.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're the product in that case. But in the case of LinkedIn, you've got a lot of these marketers. And so there's this one guy, I love reading his stuff, but his name is Yasmin Alic.
Okay.
Where is he from? I'm looking for Bosnia. He's from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. He goes by Jay, but Yasmin, it's probably Yasmin if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, he has got, just so much great stuff on LinkedIn about how to build a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like so many people, like in the UX side, like they don't think about themselves, especially when they're hiring or looking for a job, as their own brand.
Right.
The way you present yourself, that represents your brand. The way you talk about your work, the way your website, your case studies, like all of this, that is your brand. And I think we would do well to like observe some of these marketers and how they interact with other people on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I love, he's got like this whole thing about how to use the LinkedIn comments to build a network. And I would just advise like anybody out there to go and find his work, and he posts like daily on LinkedIn.
Nice.
But he talks about how to just like, one thing I love, what is the thing he says? So like the little bell, LinkedIn just added a little bell recently. So you can now get notified.
Smash
so you
that
find
like
those few
button.
people.
Click that bell.
Smash the like button, bro. So, hit the little bell, and every time they post, you'll get notified, and then you are the first one to comment, so they see you first. Because a lot of times with these senior people, like, I don't know if you do this, I tend to do this because I post, like, try to post, like, daily, but I use, like, a scheduling thing. So, like, I'm not on LinkedIn all the time. It looks like I might be, but I'm not.
I unfortunately am. It is very much brain to keyboard. It's not always the best idea, but yeah.
Yeah. But, so in that case, like you get notified and you're the first one to see it. So then that, they might post and then they start to get notified. The way an algorithm or whatever works, you don't get a notification every time someone likes or comments, just usually the first couple people.
Yeah.
So you could be that's how to get on their radar. And then you comment and you like, and it's something thoughtful like you're saying.
Yes.
And this is how you start to build that sort of recognition, I guess.
Yeah, but you're also building your own
Yeah.
brand by having thoughtful comments, by being that person who is like, ooh, follow-up question, blah, 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 blah. being the person who asks good questions. I mean, let's be real. Asking good questions is the foundation of UX, which is part of what makes me worried when I see boot camp students out and they're not even modifying the questions to be relevant to themselves. I'm like, oh, are we sure that UX is a good decision? No. I actually just recorded something earlier today and I'll share it here. I'll post it in a couple of days. But basically it's like, if you're not critically thinking about the questions that you're asking, can you consider yourself a UX designer? Because I'm worried that maybe you can't.
Yeah. You're a pixel pusher.
Yeah. And we need those, but they aren't as valuable. So the market's very oversaturated, and it's not because we're full of talent. It's because we're full of bodies that have come out of a boot camp. And I would say, I think I said this. So when I kicked off my last cohort, my most recent cohort, I did a Ask Me Anything. I posted it on ADP list and LinkedIn to say, hey, if you're headed into this course or you're thinking about joining this course, let's do an AMA and make sure that you're in the right decision or making the right decision, but also make sure you vibe with me. This is a 6 months, very intense, 930 plus hours thing. You should definitely vibe with your instructor. There's a few who definitely did not attend and who definitely do not. But I said in this AMA that I think it's about 10% of the class, and it has proven pretty consistent. About 10% of the class is definitely going to do great. And there's about 10% of the class that is definitely not going to do great. They got sold a bill of goods. Either they didn't pay attention, they didn't ask critical questions of the admissions, which, let's be real, are just sales. I don't care if it's actual higher ed or a boot camp. Those are salespeople.
Yep.
Somebody come for me. I'm opening a floodgate there, but like they're salespeople. But if you just got sold this idea of what the future could look like for you without thinking, is this really what I'm looking for? I'm worried that this was not a great investment for some of those folks. So this is an oversaturation of talent market, talent being just the human bodies that can fill roles. But I think there is probably about 25% of the talent that's out there right now. The people who are looking for jobs are actually going to be able to land them because they have a natural aptitude. Everybody else is going to have to work really, really hard to overcome that. And part of it is the critical thinking. What am I looking for? And the asking good questions. If you're not asking good questions, I don't know that you can be a great designer. There's that grimace face.
That's true. This is what I don't know if this is like oversimplifying our work too much, but I tell people this a lot, and maybe this is wrong, but I say, if you ask the right questions of the right people in the right way, the answers generally just show themselves, and you don't really have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
It just becomes so obvious, you know? We're
knowledge workers, and there's a ton of stuff we do that is us just thinking about stuff. Right. And that is hard for people who have come from like an hourly, like I transfer or I share 1 hour of my labor for 1 hour of the pay you will receive for me. That's different for knowledge workers. I will spend a day thinking of a question. Am I thinking of it 24/7? Probably not. I'm busy like making dinner and whatever, but I'm thinking about it like, oh, how would I phrase that? Oh, that was interesting. And it's just like listening to the world around me and having it like in the back of my mind. Yeah, the questions is a big deal. So if you're not asking questions about who you're networking with and why you're intending to network with them and what you expect to get out of this connection request, like those are questions that are super essential to your success in networking and in your job.
I think that is a wonderful spot to end for today. I know you've got to run in a little bit.
I know. I brought it back around. I'm really proud of that.
No, I think that was great. I love it. Anything else to add before I've got some questions to ask just so we can get to know you a little bit better. Anything else to add you think we didn't cover? Anything we're missing?
No, but I will, if you don't mind, I'll take this opportunity to say, so my cohort wraps up in a few weeks, and the next thing I want to do, because I want to help them transition successfully out of a boot camp. I think one of the problems that with boot camps is that it goes super intense and then it drops off to nothing and people are left going, okay, what next? So my goal is to do, and I love a challenge. I love like a little short, okay, I just need to do 10 minutes a day kind of thing to get into the habit of it. So I'm creating a 15-day challenge of like, let's do tiny steps for 10 minutes every day for 15 days. And I mean, business days. I'm not hanging out with y'all on weekends. I love you, but no. But just 15 days of like, here's one small thing that you can do each day to build your networking muscle. and
I love
also
that.
to build a quality network. So I will be kicking that off in a few weeks, and I'll tell you about it. I'll share it with you.
Yeah, please
But
do. I'd love to share it as well.
I would love for more people to go, all right, let's take this a little slower and look at how to build a thoughtful, meaningful network from the ground up.
I love it. All right. So we've got some questions. You ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. First thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to think too hard about them. Wink, wink. All right. What's your favorite non-design book?
That is such a hard question because there's a trilogy that I return to over and over again when I need like comfort food for the brain.
Counts.
And then there's the book where I'm like, this is for smart people and I should be reading it. The Smart People book, I'm reading Sapiens by Noah Yuval Harari. I think that's how to pronounce it.
Right up here.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Lego
halfway
van,
through it and I'm just like
It's a great book,
flabbergasted.
yeah. It's
a
really good.
great book. It helps me understand just people a little better. And it also makes me go, we're just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, what are we doing?
No.
We've been here before. Yeah, that's a great book. The whole, it's been like years since I read it, but there was a section in there about like the Industrial Revolution and just how that just like completely screwed all kinds of stuff up like all over the world.
The
just
trajectory
changed everything
of humans.
completely. Anyway, fascinating book.
Such a good book.
I started talking, and then I was like, wait a minute. Now I remember it being fascinating, but now I don't remember exactly what it was because it was so long ago.
It's really easy to get through. I do recommend it because it's like small chapters. It's definitely like you can read it before bed and then just chew on it for a little bit and go, wow, that's...
And he's got a series too, if I'm not mistaken. He's got a bunch, Anyway, that's a great book. I love that book. What's your favorite non-design podcast?
Lots of people are going to agree. True crime obsessed. I am obsessed with Jillian Pensavalle and Patrick Hines. They recap documentaries about crimes, but they do it in a very fun and sarcastic way. He is this super gay that hits like high whistle register, hysterical laughing, and she is the dry, sarcastic New York. Kind of a little bitchy, but in like a loving, like I love her kind of way. They are everything to me. So I'm going to send him a link to this just to be like, I'm a huge fan.
And then if they promote the show, it works win-win for everybody.
Right. Win-win for everybody. Yeah. They're so good.
All right. What is your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. Okay. So I had to think about this.
And this could be something you cook, something you've eaten. It could be something your grandma used to cook, whatever, anything at all, anything you've ever put in your mouth that you would consider a meal.
So I thought about it from the food I cook, but like I'll give a shout out to the Purple Pig in Chicago. I was there for work in January and I found this restaurant and ate there for 3 of my 5 dinner meals.
That counts.
Because it was so good. They were amazing. It's one of those tapas places with phenomenal wine. But I was going to say my favorite recipe is like cast iron pan seared or roasted pork. What are those? Not pork tenderloin.
Like those pork chop?
Thank you.
Pork chop.
Words.
God, I love
pork chops and roasted Brussels sprouts and smashed sweet potatoes. Like,
smashed sweet
now I'm going to have to rearrange my dinner plans for this.
You know what's really good is some like pan seared, like you get the crispy pork chop with red beans and rice coming from New Orleans. Red beans and rice with a pork chop. Oh my God. That's like something a lot of people outside of New Orleans would probably never think that's a thing.
Send me a recipe because I don't think I've had a good one. I've had like mediocre, like it made for a crowd red beans and rice. So like I want a good one. Send me a recipe.
The thing with you ask somebody from New Orleans for the recipe, nobody's got it written down. You got to like just think about it. Like, what
shout
do I put?
It, measure with your heart.
Yeah, exactly. A little of this, a little of that. Whatever I got in there. That's what I could write it down. Yeah, I'll think about it.
You can just word vomit it into a voice note, and I'll be like, yep, just a handful of sugar. Sure, let's do it.
I love it. You got to get the dried red beans though. That's the thing. I don't know. I guess Portland, you guys probably have like kidney beans. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But you got to get the right ones. You got to get the light red, large kidney beans. Because I've seen, we moved up to Ohio and Kroger
dark
has
red beans. They have really thick skin.
Yeah, the light ones is hard to find. And then a lot of I found like the small kidney beans too, which is weird. They're like little baby red beans. Ew. Anyway, you got to find the right ones, but you could probably get them on Amazon or some online if you're not cool with Amazon. All right.
Yeah.
I will write that. I will be sure to do that. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Post-it notes.
Ooh, I love it. That's like spoken like a true researcher.
They're good for keeping track of things. It's good for like visualizing. Like I love a Post-it note. I have an embarrassingly large stack of Post-it
So I do the same. So here's the thing. I'm going to show you my I bought these from Staples. These are like the generic ones. By the way, if you're going to buy Post-it notes,
buy the 3M
ones. Don't buy the generic ones.
Don't buy the generic ones.
Look how stupid this is.
Those are meant to come out of a pop-up container.
Yeah, but like
what's
problem
the UX
is like
on that?
Well, the other day, look, I did this up here. I have it somewhere. I like started right and I realized, wait, it's upside down because the last one came off and then they flip every you can't see at home, but they're like, I'm showing them in the video, which I don't post the video, so no one's going to see. But anyway,
they should go in like YouTube shorts. We should definitely have this.
Anyway, this drives me nuts. This is such a bad UX. This is like bad so UX. Dumb. Anyway, but I use that. It's just a quick notes and I wrote upside down and like I had an upside down one and it's like hanging backwards. It's stupid.
It's rude.
Anyway, Post-it notes. I'm with you. I love it. All right. Well, that is it for me for today. I don't have anything else. You got anything else?
I got lots, but we'll talk about that more later.
Let's do this. I want to give you a plug and let's talk about your YouTube series if you want. You want to promote that? Anything else you want to plug? I mean, you can plug whatever you want. You don't have to plug what I said.
I will talk about the UX Social Club is, like I said, it's for capital G, capital P, good people. I believe in each one, teach one, and everyone turning around to help the person behind them. I do not believe in pulling the ladder up behind me. I am especially focused on helping women feel successful, but also we need more Black and brown folks in our design world. I think 4% of designers are Black, and that just seems like a really low representation, especially when we end up with products where, like hand soap dispensers, where darker skin, melanated skin can't actually get soap. Y'all, come on. It's because we did not have people of color in the design process. So I'm a big fan of that. It's a Patreon. I post at least twice a month. I'm a big fan of worksheets. I love videos. I do portfolio reviews. It's $3 a month on my Patreon. And if you're a learning designer, if you're a working designer, it's like $9. It's not a big deal, but I love it and I love helping people. So yeah, if you want to come join me over there, you got to be good people though. So capital G, capital P, good people.
And what's the URL for that?
That is uxsocialclub.com.
All right, nice.
And then my YouTube's interesting. My YouTube, I'm reading a historical newsletter every day. There's a Professor Heather Cox Richardson. I read her letters from an American every day. So it's definitely jumbled up with my UX content, but it's all still relevant to me. So yeah, come over and join me on YouTube. I find myself very entertaining on short videos. So I do this lots of the time and I do it for me. So I'm very excited if you'll join me too.
Right on. All right. Well, we'll post all that stuff in the show notes. I really appreciate it. All right, y'all. I think that's it for us for today. I hope Maigen and I helped to give you guys a little bit of insight into how to network and how not to network and how to do it right. If you got any questions, find us on LinkedIn. And remember, critical thinking, make sure you ask the right questions if you find us on LinkedIn. But, we're curious. Have you found any tips or tricks that worked for you guys, for y'all? If you have, shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com or find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That would be amazing and help me out so much. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, why don't you tell them about it? And if you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out those Patreon sponsor packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, and Radu by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. And there are some sweet perks like a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, which I'm going to send you one, Maigen. Don't worry, I'll get your address offline. Don't do it right here. Wait till we get off.
Yeah.
You can get a shout out on the show every week. And there's even a package to meet with me for 30 minutes every month. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and check out all the past episodes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's so much more to UX than design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. Done.
I really wanted to be like, tell your mom and them. I said, hey, God, I love that line so much.
Go ahead, do it. I'll splice it in.